Okay, welcome, Marin and Melanie and Josh and Sigi and Raymond and Jake and Sylvia. Thanks for coming. This is a very different kind of webinar than we're used to because I'm not going over chapter or whatever it might be. This is really to get you, my goal of this webinar is that if you watch the webinar, and you guys all are, and hopefully everyone else is going to also, is that when you get to take the test next week, you won't be surprised. That's the main thing, is that you know what's coming at you, you know what to study for, and then hopefully you actually do the studying. That's always important. And if you do, and you practice, and you feel comfortable because you're able to do the problems, then you should do real well on the test. If you don't practice, that's your issue. But again, I'll talk about what to practice, what the midterm's about, where resources can be found, and I'll answer any questions you might have. So let me start by sharing what I send out to the proctors, because that's important. So what I did is I basically copied and pasted an email that I sent out that, of course, the X's or whatever the names might be. And I want to go through and read this so that you know what's coming at you, you know what they're going to expect of you, you know what to bring, and you know what's up. So these are like the official rules that the proctors are going to have. Okay, so the first thing is you have to locate a proctor. I should look at my list to make sure you all have, but I think you have. There's still about 7 that I don't have, but most of you have let me know where you're going to get a proctor. So if you're watching this as an archived lecture and you have not sent me an email yet with your proctor, you need to immediately, because I need to get it to your proctor, and sometimes it takes a few days for the communication to happen. So don't expect to send me the information and then 5 minutes later your proctor gets the test. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. So real important, and I always do research to make sure the proctor is actually an official. So I web search the name, check it out, make sure the college or whatever, or the library, whatever it is, has that person's name in their staff, and then I send it out. So that's how I just verify that you actually have a proctor. In fact, I'm not going to mention any names, but one of them took me a lot of work to find. The person had no web presence, which is like unheard of nowadays. But I finally found the person after contacting some other people there. Okay, so what I thought I'd do, let's see, let me get that chat box in. A letter I'm posting is blinking on and off. Let me try doing this. I'm trying to, let me, does that help? Do that one too. I'm trying to minimize everything else and maybe that'll help. Okay. Yeah, so let me know, by the way, if you ever have trouble seeing whatever I say that I'm posting up here. So let me read it out and talk to you about what it all means. So far, none of the proctors had any questions, which means hopefully it's clear to you guys too. Okay. The only question is, do they shred it or not when they're done? That's up to them. Okay. So dear, whoever the proctor name is, or maybe testing center if there's no name, blank, 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 that's your name. We'll be taking the statistics midterm with you, and I've attached the exam. Okay, so in the email, there's an attachment that has the exam. I did it as a Word document, and everyone nowadays can open anything. It's not like it used to be. Here are the rules for exam. Okay, so number 1, please check the student's ID to verify that is indeed whatever that person's name is. So when you go to your exam, whether it's at our college or whether it's at your town in their library or whatever, you're going to have to show your photo ID. Okay, so that's basically to make sure you don't pay someone else to take the exam. I know this sounds like, you know, over the top in terms of security and stuff, but it's kind of depressing because often I get offers, financial offers to take people's exam at different colleges for statistics. It's awful. But believe it or not, that happens. And often I turn the person in because that's my job. But so don't even think about it. Take your own test. Okay. Okay, then the student, you may bring pencils and pens. I think that's kind of obvious. any calculator you want, but not a smartphone or a computer with a calculator on it. Okay, so it has to be a calculator. Most of you will bring this guy here, the T84. Some of you have other calculators, such as the T89, or maybe there's a Casio that does it. But what you can't bring is this guy, the smartphone. I wish I could figure out a way to make that work, but I can't. I can't tell the difference between you using it as a calculator and you using it as asking your friends or each other or something. So it has to be the calculator. Okay, and if you don't have the calculator, it'll be ugly for you. Don't think you can do this test without a calculator. Okay, and I don't mean a little nothing calculator, I mean a statistics calculator. I didn't write this in here, but I recommend bringing extra batteries. Murphy's Law is the batteries go just when you need them the most. So bring extra batteries. If your calculator is saying batteries low today, get batteries. That's something to note. Okay. Then you're allowed to bring a 3-inch by 5-inch note card with writing on both sides of that note card. Okay. So that's your standard note card. You can put anything you want on that note. The idea is the note card allows you to make it so that the focus is not to memorize formulas. Any formula you can put, or if there's a particular kind of problem you want to put a little note on an example, you could do that too. So whatever it is that helps you with that note card is what you should put on. I'll have some suggestions as I go through what the test is going to be about, but it's totally up to you. I don't look at it, I don't care. If they send it to me, I just throw it out. And if you want, you can bring blank scratch paper. That's especially, this is a personality thing. If you have the kind of personality where you tend to write a whole lot and you go, oh, I didn't like that, and you want to cross it out and start over, then you can start over on scratch paper. Okay? Just make sure that you hand the scratch paper to the proctor so I can give you credit for it. Because if I don't see it, then it doesn't happen. The student will not bring a cell phone, notes other than the 3x3 note card or any book. Okay, so those are not allowed in the test. The student has 2 hours to complete the midterm. So they're going to be strict on it. Some of you are going to need the full 2 hours, some won't. I would not say, well, you know, I'm pretty fast and I got to be somewhere in an hour, I got to work, so I'm just going to do it in an hour. Don't even go there. Give yourself the full 2 hours so that you can check your work and do your best on it. Okay. The next piece is more for the proctor than for you, but when you're done, they're going to be either emailing it me or faxing, one or the other, I don't care. And then I'm going to get your test. I usually print it out. It's a little easier to grade if I have it printed. And then what I will do is I'll grade it. You're not going to get the test back ever, just let you know that. What I will do, though, is I will post a key to the midterm online. Okay? If you ever want to come to my office, I'll show it to you. But I don't mail it back to people or scan it in or anything like that. You know, but if you have questions about it, I'll let you know. And so that's the main thing. But I will give you a synopsis of how you did. So you're not just going to get a number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to record a video of me going over your exam. Usually about 3, 4, 5 minutes for each person. And listen to that video and it tells you what you can do. Some of you, it's going to be great job, high five, you know, just keep it up and you're going to be great. Some of you, it's going to be, if you don't do a 180-degree turn, then you're going to be taking this next quarter. So hopefully most of you are high fives. Okay, I always like, it's so much more fun to give the happy ones. But that's how I'm going to grade it and then give you feedback back. Okay. The next is not important to you. To make sure they put my name on it so that I get it. Okay. So that's pretty much it for the rules that get sent to the proctor. Okay. Are there any questions about kind of what to expect when you arrive at your proctor center? Questions? So again, what I'm hoping is no surprises, so that you know what you're getting into. Okay, so let me unshare this. And I need to go there and here. I need to reshare. Just a minute. Shoot. New share and that guy. There we go. Okay, so I want to share with you. This is the canvas. This is what you have. This isn't any different, other than there's some things I get to do that you don't get to do, like delete things and the thing. But don't worry about that. So there's a few buttons you don't have. This is basically the canvas. And I want to let you know that the main things that you need are going to be in the week 8 module. So this is the week 8 module. I put it there because week 8 is next week, and that's when you have to do your midterm. So it's a good idea to go to the center beforehand to see what it'll be like. So that might be a good idea. Definitely, it could be a good idea if you've never been there. But I mean, it should just be a table or a desk, and they're going to hand you a test, and you're going to work. What I do recommend, by the for sure, is to make sure, especially if you're not taking it at LTCC, that they're ready. Okay, that they have the test and they got it. I emailed it to everyone. You know, I'm very careful about that. Most of them respond saying they got it, but I recommend double checking, because it would suck if you got there and they didn't have your test. Okay, I did email it to everyone and gave that. So usually it's not a problem, but once in a while, just stuff happens. You know what I mean? As I send it to the testing center, there's 2 people that work there. The person who I send it to calls in sick. The other person doesn't have the email from the person I sent it to. And then we're scrambling. Does that make sense? Hopefully that won't happen. Take it at LTCC, it's no problem. The only issue that I should tell you about LTCC, hopefully this probably won't happen, but we're expecting a big snowstorm. So if it's a little bigger than they're saying, and this campus closes, they can't proctor it if there's 3 feet of snow and no one can get here. So that's the only disaster that could happen in Tahoe. Okay? It doesn't usually happen in the fall, but we are expecting a big snowstorm, okay, and a second storm that might come Wednesday. So depending on how big that is, I can't do much. But if there's a storm and the college is closed on Wednesday, you could take it Thursday. We'll make that work. But the point is that that's the one thing that could happen that could be a disaster. Otherwise, it's the library. The library will be around. I'll be around, and we'll make it work for you. Any questions so far? Okay, so in week 8, what I did is I put in some things that will help you for studying for the exam. And I think I'm going to put this one first, actually. Nice thing is I can do it, and it just happened. So, because that's kind of where you want to start, and that's a sketch of the midterm. So what I did is I wrote the midterm, and then I copied and pasted the midterm, but deleted the things I didn't want to show you, and posted it. So this is available for you. Again, you don't have to like copy every word down that you're looking at right now, because this is on the Canvas site. If you can't find it, you should be able to find it. It shouldn't be a problem, but I'll help you again. But again, it's just called Sketch of the Midterm, and here it is. So obviously, it's going to have a place for name. And it's going to say, work out all the problems. Credit will be based on the work that's shown that contributes towards the final answer. The answer is not that important. What's more important is the steps you show and the work you show. Okay. The only problem that doesn't have work to show are the true falses. And I'll show you, and that's going to happen. If you're using a calculator to solve the problem, write down what you're putting in the calculator. And what I mean is that if you're using, for example, a 1 prop z-test, and you have a bunch of numbers and stuff, just write down one prop z-test, just so I know that that's what you did, and then you can put in your answer. Does that make sense? And if you don't do that, the problem is if you don't have it right and you don't do that, I can't try to recreate what you were doing so that I can find partial credit to give you. That's one of the main reasons. Is I want to give you points. That's my goal. I'm not a mean person. I don't want to like see all you guys drown. I'm really rooting for y'all. But I can only give you points if I can see what you did. Does that make sense? Because my guess is none of you are going to have everything perfect. When I write the key, I don't usually have everything perfect either. I make mistakes. You see me make mistakes in the webinars. So the idea is if you have all your work shown and you made a little tiny mistake, I can give you 9 out of 10. And that's an A. If you don't have your work shown and you made a little mistake and all you have is a number and it's the wrong answer, you get 0 out of 10. And that's a low F. Do you see the difference? Even though you did the same thing in your head, if it's not on paper, I can't give you the credit. So that's the main reason to show your work. And the more you show, the better. The more points I can find for you if you get something wrong. Okay. And then I wrote also show all normal and student T diagrams, which I'll remind you again later, but that's important. Okay, so let me go through the problems. Again, this is the test. Here's the official test, which I wave fast because I don't want you to take a picture of it. But that's the official test, and literally I copied and pasted, and then I erased certain things, and then put in more stuff. So problem number 1 is for each part. So let me read this out, and I've let you know this was going to be on the test. Do you guys remember that I told you there was a problem that was going to be in the test? It was during a webinar. Maybe you don't remember, but it happened. I promise. And not only that, it's recorded so I could prove it. So it says, be sure to write down the sampling distribution for each, put in your normal curve diagram, answer the question, and determine whether the normality assumption was needed. 4 things to do. Does that ring a bell? Okay, so here it is. I promised it was going to be here, and it's here. Not only is it here, it's question number 1. Okay, so this is, I didn't like randomize the questions and you're seeing them out of order. This is the order of the test. So I'm going to give you a scenario, okay, and I'm not telling you what the scenario is going to be, but it's going to be a scenario. As you can guess, it'll probably give you a mean and a standard deviation, because otherwise how do you do normal curves, right? And then there will be a part A and a part B. So notice there's an A and a B. So how many different components are there total? See if you can tell me. 8. Good. Josh gets it. Because there's an A and a B. For part A, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. For part B, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. I recommend numbering them, and that way you don't forget them. Okay? So make sure you do it. Okay? If you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, how can you find out exactly what I'm talking about? How can you find it? See if you can remember. Yeah, rewatch the webinar. That was the webinar on chapter 7, which was week 5, I believe. So I think that was the week 5 webinar. And I go through an example with a 1, 2, 3, and a 4. Hopefully you remember that. And number 1, remember there was like an X or an X bar, a sigma X, and a tilde, and an N. Hopefully that rings a bell. Okay, make sure you use the formulas. If you don't have to memorize the formulas. Do you guys know why? Yeah, write them down on your little note card. So remember that we have for the X bar, mu sub X bar is just mu, but sigma sub X bar was sigma over root n. There were formulas. And for the summation of X, mu sub summation of X was equal to mu times n, and sigma sub summation of X was sigma times the square root of n. So those were different formulas. Again, I don't care if you have them memorized. I do care if you don't put them on a note card and you don't want to memorize them, because then you're just being foolish. And it's a small note card, So write small. Okay. If you have vision problems, then you were supposed to go to a disability resource center, and they'll give you accommodations for that. They would give you let you have magnifying glass if you had eye issues. Okay, but if you didn't, then I can't make it happen because I'm not an optometrist. Okay. Any questions on question number 1? Any questions? So you know it's coming. It's a very standard question. You just got to be able to do it. Okay. So question number 2. I say a scenario will be given. That means I'm not going to tell you. You'll find out when you get there. Okay. Again, I'm not going to show you exactly what problems are, but I want to show you what to study for. Okay. Then it says discuss the implications of a type 1 error. So let's see if you guys can guess what chapter is this coming from. Here's a hint. It should be fresh in your brain. Yeah, this week's chapter 9. Okay? That is a chapter 9 question. So type 1 error, remember that means that you reject the null hypothesis, but the null hypothesis is correct. Implications mean who gets hurt. What damage is done because of this error. That's the implications. So don't just write reject H0 when H0 was true. That's a definition, not an implication. Does that make sense? Okay, instead, tell me what went wrong. Okay, and then number 2 is discuss the implications of a type 2 error. I might have called it ABC, I don't remember. I'm looking at it, I don't usually do a 1, 2, 3. I think it's ABC. Sorry about that. I think what happened, I know it is, yeah, these are ABC. What happened is when Canvas does numbering, it automatically does it numbered, not lettered. So hopefully that won't trip any of you guys up. It's ABC, not 1, 2, 3. Okay, so number 2 is the same thing with type 2. Number 3, conduct the hypothesis test. Be sure to state the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, the p-value, and the test you're using. Then state your conclusion using a complete sentence in the context of the study. So for the conclusion, see if you can remember, since it's brand new, should be fresh in your brains. What are the first few words of the conclusion? This is important. So a lot of people get this wrong, but if you write down the first few words, you'll probably get it right. So I'm telling you now. See if anyone knows. What are the first few words of the conclusion for a hypothesis test? Yeah, and usually there is. So either there is, and it's usually statistically significant, because statistical is it's usually statistically significant evidence, or there is statistically insignificant evidence, depending on whether you had a big or small p-value. Okay, so just a note, I'm telling you now, if you write down if many studies were done, that's not the first few words. Got it? I'm telling you now because I've been teaching this a long time, and I'm tired of seeing those words. Okay? Interpret, state the conclusion means either there's statistically significant evidence or there's statistically insignificant evidence. And then context of the question, that means you talk about what the evidence is for this particular survey that's talked about. So for example, which I'm not going to give you, if we did a survey on whether you watched Game 7 of the World Series. Okay, I'm saying that now. How come? Okay, hopefully y'all know. You're watching it now. Yeah, so I apologize. I'm not a big watcher. I'm too busy to watch nowadays. But sorry if you're missing the game. But then you would say there's statistically significant evidence to conclude that more than 50%, if that's what it was, of all Americans watched Game 7 of the World Series. That's the context. Any questions on that? Okay, number 3. Okay, number 3 is please circle the following true, okay, or false. Okay, type error briefly. Okay, so a type 2 error means you fail to reject the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis was true. I'm sorry, when the alternative hypothesis was true. So you should have rejected it. So let me give you an example that I gave in my class today, actually, in my face-to-face class. So there was a study that was done to find out whether there was, when people are vaccinated, do they have a higher proportion of autism? I don't know if you've heard about that study. So what would a type 2 error repercussions be? So first thing, that means you failed to reject the null hypothesis, but the alternative hypothesis was true. So failing to reject means we weren't able to conclude that there was a higher proportion of autism for those who were vaccinated. Okay. But there was a higher proportion of autism. So what happened is we wouldn't know that this vaccination was related to a higher proportion of autism when it really was. So what happened is we would have this vaccination that was making autism happen, and we'd have a much higher percentage of autism than needed to be when we should have adjusted the vaccination. By the way, you should never just say don't vaccinate, but you should adjust the vaccination and change the chemical compounds so that it doesn't have a prevalence of autism. And you're going to have a lot of people with autism unnecessarily. Do you see that? That would be a type 2 error. A type 1 error, I know you didn't ask, but I should say it because it goes together, would mean that we concluded from the study that vaccinations is related to autism when it has nothing to do with autism. So right away, people are going to not vaccinate their children because they're going to read about this study. And what's going to happen is what happened in Disneyland about 5 years ago. Anyone know? There was a big measles outbreak because there are all these anti-vaxxers at Disneyland, and one kid got measles and spread it to everyone. And all these poor kids either died or got really horribly sick when they shouldn't have, because they should have just been vaccinated. Does that make sense? And it actually came from kind of a type 2 error. There was a study in Great Britain that showed this relationship, but then they found out the study was poorly done and there was no relationship. Do you see that? So that's a type 1 error, when they thought there was a relationship, but there wasn't. Do you see? Does that make sense? Did that help? And this is all like true story stuff. That's the good thing about stats, is I could bring in real stuff. When I teach algebra, I can't do that. Okay, I try, but it just doesn't happen. Okay. All right, let me go talk about the true falses. So there's lots of ways of studying the true falses. One way, and I want you to do me a favor, at least somebody, go in to Canvas and see if you can retake an old test, because I heard you couldn't, and then I went and changed adjustments, and then I didn't hear anything anymore. So somebody, if you're on your computer, if you can go in with another screen, see if it'll let you into one of the old tests, chapter anything below 9, and see if it's supposed to let you in to redo it without credit. It doesn't let you do a different question. I'm not sure if I can make that happen. That's interesting. Again, I'm a little new to the system, things like the rules of the system. I'm the one that created the questions. I'm a little rule. So at least you could do those questions that you had done last. So you can't redo it with the new question set. So I'll try and figure out there's a way to make that happen. I keep trying. At least you could do the same question. Okay, so that at least gives you some questions. Okay, that's a good thing. So if you get it wrong, it doesn't let you try a different one, is what you're saying. Okay, sorry about that. Again, I'm trying, but at least you can go back and do one question of each type. Okay, and I'll see if I can make it happen. I may have to write a whole new quiz and go there. Okay, but at least you have a review mode, so it's a compromise. Again, I'm trying. I apologize, it's not perfect. Okay, so So you can redo the true falses. Let me show you another thing you can do. So I'm hoping, do you all see a new tab? I want to make sure that you saw a new tab. Okay. If you just type in my name, I'm usually first, but not always. So I am with me always because Google knows me. If not, I don't sell cars. There are car dealerships that that they have a web page that sometimes gets above mine. But there's a good chance it'll go. And if you go to this ltcconline.net one, I want to show you something that might help you. And if you go to comprehensive review, and you go to practice true false questions. And then, because you're studying for the midterm and not the final, you want to click up to hypothesis testing. You don't want to click the ones you don't recognize, like chi-squared and ANOVA, because that's not today. When you're studying for the final, you click them all. You just select all. Okay? And then you hit submit, and it will give you practice problems, hundreds and hundreds of them. So I created a lot of them. Some may be a little less relevant because I created some a long time ago. I haven't deleted some. But it says if we survey 35 American citizens, asking them if they were born in a foreign country, then it is appropriate to use the normal distribution when calculating the confidence interval for the proportion of American citizens who were born in a foreign country, since the sample size is greater than 30. Put in your chat box, true or false. So I'm seeing, good. I'm seeing a bunch of falses. So if you click false, by the way, smiley's good. Okay, you don't get a smiley if you get it wrong. But it does tell you false, but it tells you more than that, because if you just got lucky but you didn't understand, that's the worst, because if it just said false, you think you knew it and you don't. So here it's the student's t-distribution should be used if the population standard deviation is unknown. But so the idea here is, it's not the best, but the idea, this is a yes or no question. And you only use the student's t here, there. So it's a yes or no question, and it's greater than or equal to 5 is what you need, right? Let's try one more. If the p-value is 0.003 and the level of significance alpha is 0.05 in a hypothesis test for the mean, then we accept the alternative hypothesis. What do you think? True or false? Put in your chat box. Got a 50-50 chance, right? So we got a true, keep going. Okay, you're all saying true, so let's try true. Awesome. So if p is less than alpha, you accept the alternative hypothesis. Any questions on that? Okay, so again, this will give you a lot of different true-false questions to practice with from all the chapters from now, before. Don't pick ANOVA or you'll be confused. So make sure you don't select the things you haven't done yet. Okay, so anyway, so I created that. And in theory, that should work on your smartphone because I made it in JavaScript and it's supposed to work on all devices. I think I did that a year or two ago where I did the switch over. Okay, so the next question. Uniform distribution question. There are 3 parts. One of the parts will need material from chapter 4. So big hint. Big hint. Okay, be ready for it. Uniform distribution. What picture should be on your answers? Yeah, rectangle or a box. Okay? So make sure you have one. You will get points just for having the box, even if everything else is wrong. And you'll lose points if everything else is right and you don't have the box. So rectangles are easy to draw. I'm telling you now, the uniform distribution, draw a rectangle. Do not draw a normal curve. Got it? Because uniform distributions are not bell curve looking things. They're boxes. Got it? And then practice. Again, that uniform distribution, if you remember, that was chapter 5. Okay, problem 5. A question involving statistics. For example, the mean, the median, the mode, standard deviation, z-score, interquartile range, etc. I'm not going to tell you which one. I want you to study all of them. So make sure you understand how statistics work, know how to use your calculator, know how to interpret each of the things that I've written down. Got it? Number 6, confidence interval question. So there's going to be some kind of paragraph at the beginning, and then it's going to say, determine the appropriate 95% confidence interval, write a sentence that explains your findings. When you write a sentence that explains your findings, what should the first few words be? Just so you know, there's no excuse for not having the first few words right, since I'm telling you now, this is part B, it'll be not number 2, but part B of problem number 6. So you should all have that, at least the first few words right, because I'm telling you what they have to be. So what are they? Yeah, we can be 95% confident. So if you don't have those words down, there's no excuse. Because I'm telling you, here they are. Put them on. And then there'll be more words. I'm not going to tell you what the rest of it is. But I'm going to tell you that's how you start. Okay? Then use a sentence or two to explain what it means in the context to be that percent confident. Okay, so that's the old, if you were to conduct the study many times, do you remember that? With that sample size, whatever the sample size might be, okay, then each of the different times, you would end up with a different confidence interval. And then 95% of the confidence intervals will contain either the population proportion of whatever or the population mean of whatever. Okay, so practice those. So again, I'm telling you the answers to the test. Please get it right. Okay, I'm rooting for you. I'm trying to help you. Okay, then was it necessary to make any assumptions about the underlying distribution of the population? So here's the thing. We've had 2 different types. So what should you be deciding on which type it is? What kind of thinking should we be looking at? For assumptions on the distribution. Do you remember? Yeah, proportions are numbers, okay? We call it quantitative. So is it a yes or no question? Survey question. It's a survey question that matters. So imagine yourself asking that survey question or doing the experiment and seeing the result. Are you going to get a yes, no, or are you going to get a number? If you're going to get a number, then you got to make sure your sample size is more than 30. If you're going to get a yes or no, you got to make sure that number of yeses is more than 5 and the number of no's is more than 5. Any questions on this? Okay, number 7, another confidence interval question. Okay, this one is going to ask you to find the sample size. There are 3 equations, 3 formulas for sample sizes. Do you need to memorize them? No, put them on your note sheet. I'll say them quickly, but you should have them. So remember that if you have a quantitative survey question, again, you're not supposed to memorize them, but you should have them. They should be in your notes already. And that is that n is equal to the square root of z sigma over e. Sorry, not square root, the square of z sigma over e, or z sigma over e quantity squared. If it's a proportion question, you know nothing about the proportion, it's 0.25 times z over e quantity squared. And if it is a proportion question when you have a preliminary estimate, it is p times 1 minus p times z over e quantity squared. To find Z, you're going to draw a normal curve. The confidence interval's in the middle. You need to get to one side. You need to get to the left-hand side. So I think for you, it's probably over here. And so you realize that if you had, say, a 90% confidence interval, 90%'s inside, 10%'s out, half of that, 5%'s on the left. Show the picture. Got it? And then you do an inv norm with a 0 and a 1 for the mean and standard deviation. So we did these kind of problems, but you need to practice. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you need to practice a lot. If you pretty much remember, you need to practice probably once. Make sure you get it. But please, even if you think you remember completely, practice at least once. Proportion numbers is, yeah, 1 minus p and q is the same thing. So sometimes you'll see q, sometimes you'll see 1 minus p. So that's a good question. Okay, number 8 is a hypothesis test question. Okay, so there's a lot on, notice, chapters 8 and 9, because we kind of had that online midterm thing, so that I have a lot more on the newer stuff. You know it's coming at you. Write down the appropriate null and alternative hypothesis, find the test statistic and p-value. Test statistic, that's going to be t or z. So on the online homework, you have to do that this week. Okay. The p-value, use a complete sentence to state the results in the context of the study using a level of significance of whatever. And then the p-value is a probability. Write a few sentences to interpret the probability in the context of the study. The level of significance represents a probability. Write a few sentences to interpret this probability in the context of the study. What are good ways of practicing this? And seeing examples especially. Yeah, redoing the homework, and especially doing the homework. So doing it first and then redoing the homework this week. Okay, which is why for those of you who originally said you were going to take the test this week, and I said, are you crazy? Because you want to have all this mastered. You want to have chapter 9 really known by the end before you take the test, because it is a big part of this test. So redo it, and I have the words. Okay, so don't just take it as a multiple choice test and quickly do it. Write it down on paper. That's really important. If you don't practice writing it down on paper, then you won't be able to write it down on paper when you have to next week. So make sure you write it down instead of just looking at it and say, I know which one. Do you see the difference? Because you won't learn how to write it down if you don't write it down. Okay, I recommend writing it down before you even look. So just look for the first paragraph of the question. Try to do this, problem 8, and problem, what number was it? Number 2. Basically, I split these up because number 2 has a type 1, type 2 error, and number 8 has the understanding p-value and understanding level of significance in terms of complete sentences. Because it's too long to do as one question, so I made it 2 questions. Okay, number 9. Number 9, read a statistical chart and answer probability questions. Then show you understand the standard deviation. Okay, so what are the main charts, statistical charts that we have? Think chapters 1 and 2. Forgot whether it was 1 or 2. Think your project 1. That's a hint. What were the charts you did for project 1? I know it was a while ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Yeah, box plot, bar chart, stem and leaf, histogram. Okay? In fact, I'll even tell you, it's going to be one of those. So if you don't know how to read those charts, it could go bad for you. Okay? And then I'm going to bring in chapter 3. So I'm going to ask you probability questions from that chart. So I'm letting you know now what's coming at you. So know the things like the formulas for given, and what and means, what or means. Do you remember all that? So this is kind of a combo. And I'm going to ask you something about the standard deviation. And it's really about your understanding of what the standard deviation means and represents. Okay? So again, I'm not telling you exactly what it is, but I'm giving you some big hints here. Then comes problem 10, which is extra credit. You would be foolish if you don't get full credit on this. All you do is write anything, and I'll give you full credit. But if you leave it blank, you get no credit. So there are 4 questions. Okay, and again, I apologize, it's actually A, B, C, or D. How many points is it? That depends. Here's what you hope for. You hope that you do the extra credit and you get no points on the extra credit. I know that sounds like wicked, right? Because there's only one way that could happen, which almost never happens. Any guess? It means you got 100% on everything else. And if you complain about that, then you got issues. If you complain about 100%, you got problems. Okay? Almost no one gets a 0 on the X credit if you do something. So it's my way of curving. Okay? It's my way of curving. I have different, sometimes I just give 5 points for everyone. Sometimes I say, well, I'm going to take your lowest problem and make it 100%. So it depends what I feel like I need to do to make the curve happen. But I apply the same rules for everybody, whatever it is. Okay? So it's write down one thing your instructor can do, that's me, by the way, or could have done for you to help you better succeed in this online course. Okay? Be careful what you ask for because you're going to get it, or you might get it. If you ask, I'd like everyone to get A's without doing any work, I won't do it for you. You'll get credit for the extra credit, but I'm not going to let that happen. And then write down one thing your instructor did for you that helped you succeed in this online course. Okay, so by the way, I did write everything in the course, except for the book. Okay, there is one page of the book I wrote, but you haven't gotten to that yet. Okay, so it could be anything from the course, and that counts. Write down one thing that you can do for yourself to help you better succeed in this online course. Okay, so think about, for the next 4 weeks, how could you improve your grade? Does that make sense? Okay, and last is one thing that you have done for yourself to help you better succeed in this online course. Okay, so what worked? So it gets you to reflect, you know what it is, so you can prepare for this in advance and quickly do it. Okay, and this is the test. So let me ask you first, have I taken away the element of surprise? Do you feel like you know what's coming at you? Okay, because that's my goal of this webinar, is to make sure that you all get what you're going to have to know for this midterm. Okay? Okay, by the way, having seen these questions does not mean you know everything for this midterm. It means you know what to study. So let me go back. And there's a lot of things that you can do to study. So first thing is you can relook at the sketch of the midterm, make sure you got it, because I don't expect you to memorize it, but make sure you got it so you know the components that you have to study for. I have a little practice test. This is a practice test. It's not the test, but it gives you some extra problems. I have to click it, so it loads it. And there's a bunch of problems. Notice there are 19 questions on this practice test. So again, this is not the test, because do you remember how many questions there were? Not counting the extra credit? Yeah, there are 9. So this gives you a lot more of them to give you some ideas so that you can practice and practice some more. So it gives you some extra practice if you want. And again, all this is on Canvas. And ideas for studying. I don't even remember what I put on this, but view some videos that you need. So I have videos for everything. Have you noticed that? So if there's something that you need, like a practice problem, you can find a practice problem on that video in that chapter. Okay. You could either watch the whole live video, webinar video, the live chapter video, or that one problem video in the practice problem. Okay. You can look at the textbook. Oh, you know what? I didn't fix this. Let me fix it now while we're here. By the way, what's wrong? What do I have to fix? Anyone know? Should say chapters 1 through 9. It doesn't cover chapter 10. So that's a typo. Okay, so let me save it. So now it's right. Okay, by the way, you see how easy it is for me to fix typos? If you find a typo anywhere, let me know so I can fix it. Otherwise, like for the rest of eternity, everyone has to suffer through my typos. I found a bunch today in the chapter 9 homework, a whole lot of them. I had the written twice in a row, little things that I just happened to notice. So I did a lot of minor changes. So do the, it shouldn't say odd homework problems, do the homework problems. It's another one I could fix. I wrote this a long time ago. There used to be odd and even. So do the homework problems. Okay, so redo them. Read the textbook, and you can practice some problems there, and they give you answers in the textbook too. Look at the midterm structure. Take the practice test I showed you. Relax and study. So I'll tell you my secret when I was a student. So see if you could figure it out. First thing, I don't know if I told you, but I went to UC San Diego. I don't know if you all know that. Any guess on how I relaxed and studied? Especially for those who know UC San Diego? Yeah, Black's Beach. So for me, it was 50 minutes of studying and 10 minutes of surfing. Run out, catch a wave, come back in, and then study some more. Because you got to have some fun too. Okay, and that way I wasn't all pressured and depressing. I actually got to catch some waves, which was important. But also, my surfing buddies would say, "Are you crazy? The waves are awesome. Don't go back." But I did go back because I wanted to make sure I graduated from UC San Diego. That was important. So I recommend, again, taking little breaks, doing something fun, whatever you like to do to have fun. But 10 minutes of fun, not 8 hours of fun, or you won't get any studying done. So again, make sure you do something that isn't just depressing. Okay? Any questions on this? So those are my suggestions on what to do. I can't tell you how many hours to study because, again, it depends on where you are right now. Some of you need a lot more than others because you're lost and you need to basically spend your life studying between now and the test. Okay, some of you are right on top of it. You're doing great. And you need to spend a couple hours and that's probably enough. So it totally depends on, where you are and what you've already done and and how much you've understood. Okay, but everybody's different. Okay, that is pretty much what I have to say for the midterm. I've gone through kind of all the different details, but I will open it up to questions. Again, this isn't one that has to be an hour or anything, and I don't have a secret word. Do you all agree that you'd be foolish not to have watched this? Okay, it would go very badly for you. This is one of those. It's such a must that I think everyone's going to watch. And then I think we have a record number of participants in this webinar, by the way. We have 10, and we had more before that had to leave already. So I'm not going to give you a secret word because you'd be foolish not to have it. There was a secret word on Monday, though. So you do need to watch that. And don't wait until after the test, or after you study. I would do chapter 9 first. Just get that done with because you need that to be able to practice for the test. Okay, so are there any questions? Again, I'm opening it up. Yeah.
I have a question. On the true and false questions, if we answer incorrectly, but we write why we wrote down our question, is there a possibility of getting partial credit?
There's a possibility. It often doesn't happen because you just didn't get the big point of it.
Okay.
But it can't hurt, that's for sure. So if it's true and you circle true, you're going to get full credit.
Mm-hmm.
If it's true and you circle false, and you say it's false, and then you your entire paragraph on is why it's true, but you accidentally circled false, I might give you credit. You know what I mean? Half credit. But if you got that it's true, you'll probably circle true. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, one more thing. There's no negative points. So don't be a fool. Make sure you either circle true or false. Because probability, what is the probability that if you have no idea that you'll get it right? If you circle something?
50.
50%. If you circle nothing, what's the probability you get it right?
0.
0%. Maximize your probability. Remember, this is a statistics class. Okay, so you should demonstrate that you at least learn the very basics of probability, and that is 50% is better than 0%. Mm-hmm. So don't leave any of them blank. Before you turn it in, just quickly go back to that true false. Make sure you got something circled on each of them. And then also go to your extra credit. Make sure you have something written on them. Does that make sense? You don't have to spend a lot of time on the writing of the extra credit, but you should have something, because those are freebies. Okay. Hopefully you'll get them all right, but most people make a couple mistakes. Very few get them all wrong. That's pretty hard to do with all of those. Other questions? Okay. So I want to also remind you, I monitor that Q&A forum often. In fact, I'll check it again just for fun. See if there's any new ones there weren't before I started the webinar. There's a new one. What do you know? So let's see if it's important for all of us. This is public, so it's not like I'm giving away what someone does. I'll have to check this one, actually. All right, so that one I'll have to check. That's not about the test. So there might be an issue with the homework. I'll have to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? Again, I hang out until there's nobody left or everyone's clearly silent. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. And I'll be checking the forums for more questions if you have them. So any questions? So we still have Tian, Rosamund, Aubrey, Jake, Amanda. Any questions?
I can have a question.
Sure.
I'm having a hard time remembering the type 1, type 2 errors.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a trick or anything to remember them?
I don't know about trick, but what you want to think about, maybe an easier way to talk about it, is a type 1. So remember, I like to think of hypothesis testing as a game. You want to win the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're H1. Your opponent's H0. Got it? So a type 1 error means you think you won the game, you bragged all about the game and about the fact that you won, but you actually lost.
Okay. That works.
A type 2 error means that you never concede, by the way, but you kind of put your head down and say, well, I don't really I can't talk about winning the game because I don't have evidence that I won the game. And you kind of walk away sulking. And then you won the game.
Okay.
Which
Oh,
is,
that could work.
believe it or not, my first election.
Huh.
So the news, after the election, I wake up in the morning and it said I lost.
But you actually won?
But I
Or
actually won. Yeah.
okay.
So the newspaper, at least for me, made a type 2 error.
Okay.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a true story, by the way. It was in the newspaper.
That's a good way of remembering it.
I even gave a concession speech to my opponent, to H. Knott, we'll call the person, who I get along with. I'm friends with, actually. The one I'm mad at was the newspaper. So if that helps, I'm not sure if that helps or not.
No, it definitely does. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Amanda or Aubrey? Questions? Okay. If it's quiet for a while, I think I'll say goodnight.
All right. I don't have any more questions. So.
Okay, because I don't want to waste everyone's time either. You might be waiting until I say goodnight, or maybe you stepped out. I know you didn't, Rosamund, because your picture's there.
All right. Well, I'm going to go. Thank you.
All right. Aubrey and Amanda, you don't have any questions. I'll say goodnight. And I want to remind everybody, especially if you did not let me know about where you're taking the test, you need to do that right away. Okay? And then if you have other questions, that you should do when you have them, and I'll help you out.
Wait, now I do have a question. Would you have sent an email back that you got the response, or that you got the email saying that we have a place?
I thought I did, but I have you down. UC Santa Cruz.
Yes.
I
Okay.
think I sent you an email, no?
You probably did. It's been a long week.
Because I have it checked that I did. So if you didn't get the email, that means that something went wrong with the email. But
okay.
But I already sent, and they actually sent me back already.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're taking it at UC Santa Cruz, according to I'm looking down at my list.
Yes, I am.
So you're good to go.
All righty.
Yeah.
Thank
but
you.
But it still can't hurt to check with them to make sure.
Okay, well, I'll email. All right. Thank you, Larry.
All right, and good luck on the midterm.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye. And for all of you who are watching this on YouTube, I wish you luck. And again, please ask questions when you have them, and we'll call it a night.